So I'm just going to now introduce Heather Sherman from BDS, who has vast experience in library systems, physical and digital supply chains, metadata life cycles, e-commerce, ebooks, acquisitions and cataloging. And Heather is going to speak on streamlining metadata supply for all, which will present case studies from early adopter libraries of BDS all. So hand over now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just been said, I'm Heather Sherman. I'm Director of Academic Library Operations at BDS, and I'm going to talk to you about some work we've been doing with academic libraries and stock suppliers and system suppliers to streamline metadata workflows. So just a little bit about who BDS are. We're bibliographic data services. We're based up in Dumfries in southwest Scotland, where we have 60 staff, 40 of whom are cataloguers. And we are a living wage employer, which is very important to the business. And you may not be aware, but we've actually been providing academic libraries with records for over 25 years, but primarily through stock supplies. So you've probably got some of our records already. A little bit of background as to why we looked at streamlining the metadata workflows. I'll talk a little bit more about the first 3 points in more detail as we go. But there were other factors as well, such as the MBK, just a general recognition around the cost and value of high-quality metadata, and sustainable procurement as well. I think that's becoming something that's more important as well to libraries as we go on. So just to look at the report that GIST commissioned a couple of years ago on remodeling the UK metadata marketplace, what they were finding from the analysis that they had done was that libraries are spending lots of time acquiring metadata and lots of money on it as well, and it's often not fit for purpose. People are correcting records and they've paid for those records, so they're not really getting the service that they're expecting. And there's also lots of channels that the metadata is coming through, and again from the report they were finding that none was really fit for purpose. The landscape's messy, there's lots of players in the marketplace, the data's flowing through lots of different systems, and often by the time it reaches the libraries it's lost some of the data that was there at the start, and we certainly know that from the work we do, that we are supplying very high quality records into stock suppliers, and we know they don't always unfortunately get to libraries in the same state as they left us. Those themes were also echoed in a report that Emma Booth did for NAG, looking at the quality of shelf-ready metadata. And again, she was finding that 25% of libraries were dissatisfied with the quality. Again, lots performing quality control and correcting errors. So very similar themes to the GISC report. And as part of the research that we did, we spoke to a number of university libraries about their experiences. And one of the ones we spoke to had looked at the help desk inquiries they were getting, and they found that 15% could be attributed directly to poor metadata, which is obviously, it's not only giving students a bad experience, it's potentially preventing them from finding probably very expensive resources in the case of e-textbooks. And it's also meaning that staff are having to spend time answering questions about something that really shouldn't be necessary. Just to refresh people on the aims of Plan M, but I'll come back to those at the end of the talk in a bit more detail. So in terms of what we've been working on with the libraries and the stock suppliers, it's a new service. We've looked specifically at what the UK and Irish libraries are buying, and the stock suppliers were actually very helpful in that and gave us a year's worth of sales data so we could see exactly what people were buying, looking at the date ranges and publishers and subject areas. So what we've developed is, we're calling it the Academic Library Licence. It's just banded annual subscription that covers the creation, curation, supply and sharing of data. And we've also done a lot of work on the licence that underpins it, again in consultation with libraries and with GISC in the UK, looking at the rights that libraries really need to have with the metadata that they take from suppliers. So there's quite extensive ability to share and reuse records, either directly with other libraries or via knowledge bases such as the Alma Community Zone and OCLC WorldCat. It covers English language print, ebook and open access titles from 1st of January 2010 or before that if we've already got a record. And all the records we supply are RDA compliant and created book in hand. The other thing that we give to the libraries as well is access to our back catalogue, and people are finding that really useful for cataloguing donations or areas of the collection where they've perhaps not been able to catalogue them as fully as they would want at the time. Lots of libraries are also looking at this in terms of being able to have better records for PDAs and EBAs. So they're taking the initial supplier record and then taking another record from us to overlay that with a much fuller record, which obviously helps the students find those titles that you've got for those projects. We worked, as I've said, very closely with SUPC and NAG on this. So we have made really detailed record standards in terms of the tags and subfields that are in the records, and the records meet the SUPC essential and applicable metadata requirements, and the ebooks also meet the NISO recommended practice for ebooks. The publishers are also involved in this. They work really closely with us, and they are giving us access to frontlist and backlist print ebooks and open access titles so that we can create records. And our cataloguers are creating one record per title, and that's what you'll see on our database and also what gets supplied out to libraries. And we have a single help desk, so regardless of where you've purchased that material from, it's one point of contact for any queries as well, which is much better than at the moment, where there could be several places to go if there's an error in the record and you need it correcting. These are the stock suppliers that we worked with. I guess ProQuest is probably the bigger one over here, but they've been extremely supportive right from the start, working with us on supporting this and supporting it with shelf-ready workflows as well. One of the big things that the libraries we've been working with have been really keen to do is to automate the complete supply of the records. So we've been talking to Ex Libris, again, who've been very supportive about how we could do that, and we've got a workflow in place that works with Alma and Rialto, and we have a similar workflow with Cersei Dynets, Cohart and ESS. The way that works is the library systems feed us a daily file of new orders and new invoices. That gets loaded onto our FTP server. We do an instant match against existing records and send those straight back. If we need to upgrade the record, then that's done within 2 working days and then made available. And at the other end of the system, the library system is looking out for new files of records, and as soon as it sees those on our FTP site, it picks them up and imports them into the library system. The libraries are getting customised records, so that meeting local requirements for the records, and those supportive stock suppliers also get a vendor-neutral record, so they get a copy as well. In terms of linked data, obviously a very hot topic as well at the moment. People are looking at what they're going to do around this area. Because the records we supply are very high quality and very consistent mark coding and vocabularies, then they make the transition to linked data quite smooth. We're already starting to add ISNIs into our records, and we'll be moving to fast subject headings later on this year because we supply the British Library with CIP records, and they've announced they're moving, so we'll also follow suit. We're also looking at options for libraries to help people add ISNIs into existing records, and we've done that internally as part of a project for the British Library, so we've already got mechanisms for doing that. And we're looking at doing crosswalks between other identifier services like NASO and ORCID. Just wanted to touch on sustainability as well, because we really think this also helps libraries with their green initiatives, in that we're creating a record once and then it can be reused. So that makes it much more efficient than multiple people working on records. And we're also working from digital surrogates, so there's no physical books moving up and down the country anymore. So just back to Plan M and the aims, and just to sort of see where we are with those. So the first aim is to establish a fair and sustainable pay-to-shared bibliographic data ecosystem. We have JISC banding, and the pricing replaces any current payments you might be making to stock suppliers for records. And we've been working with the public libraries, both in the UK and Ireland, in a very similar way for over 20 years, so we know we can do this for the long term as well. We're supplying records that are fit for purpose because we have those records that meet SUPC, NAG and NISO standards, sending existing records immediately and then the upgraded ones within 2 working days. And we're creating records ahead of publication for the kind of core titles that we're expecting that university libraries will be buying. Streamlining the workflows for libraries and both libraries and suppliers. Well, the suppliers don't need to catalogue titles anymore. I used to work at Dawson Books before I joined BDS. And I know from personal experience that having a cataloguing team is not something that most stock suppliers want to do. It's the way it's been done in the past, but it's not something that's core to what they do. So they've been very supportive of that move to take that work away from them. It works seamlessly with any shelf-ready setups that are already in place with your stock suppliers, And obviously that automated workflow option as well makes life just really smooth in terms of getting the records. One of the benefits that our early adopter libraries highlighted, which we hadn't really sort of anticipated, is around direct delivery as well. So particularly during COVID, when stock was going straight to individual campus libraries rather than coming centrally, it meant that they didn't have to check the metadata records. They could just deal with that separately and have it done centrally. We're taking responsibility for the creation and curation of records, so it's reducing the duplication of effort across the community, and we have that single record that's used multiple times and can be shared with knowledge bases and other libraries. The records are coming from one source from us, so that's cutting down on the number of places that libraries need to source their records from, and they don't need to, obviously you don't need to go and look for records because it's just taken care of with that workflow. And we have that infrastructure that allows that easy sharing of records with other libraries. Obviously have the routine acquisition titles were one of the key pieces of information that the Plan M was looking to solve, and we have those high quality records, as we said, with no need to look. So just to finish up with a quote from one of our early adopter libraries from Andrew Knight at Imperial College, what they were looking to do was to consolidate their supply and have predictable costs. They've been live with the system for almost a year now and done some analysis on the speed of supply, so they don't check the records anymore. So all of those concerns that were being raised at the beginning by the JISC and the NAG reports, they've all gone away as far as Imperial College are concerned. And looking at the cost of it, they're paying the same as they used to pay stock supplies, but they're getting a much faster and a much more accurate and high-level record than they previously had as well. That's me. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Heather.